The Labyrinth of Self-Understanding. Profound Reasons Why Humans Fail to Understand Themselves. Hello, everyone. Today we will explore one of the most complex mysteries of human existence. The question is, why is it difficult for humans to understand themselves? While this question may seem simple on the surface, finding the answer requires a profound journey of exploration that intertwines human psychology, philosophy, and spirituality. Socrates left us the famous saying, "Know thyself." But why has this seemingly simple command become one of the most difficult tasks in human history? Perhaps it's because the journey of self-reflection isn't merely an accumulation of knowledge, but rather a process that penetrates through our emotions, experiences, relationships, and the depths of our souls. Through this audiobook, we aim to explore the various obstacles humans face in understanding themselves and seek practical paths toward deeper self-understanding. Now, let's enter the first gate of the labyrinth of self-awareness. Chapter 1. The Hidden Kingdom of the Unconscious. The human mind is like an iceberg. What we consciously recognize is merely the small portion floating above water, while most mental activity takes place in the invisible realm of the unconscious. Even before psychologists like Freud and Jung systematized the concept of the unconscious, humanity had vaguely recognized that their behaviors were not entirely the result of their conscious choices. With the advancement of modern neuroscience, we can now confirm this fact more clearly. Interestingly, research shows that our brains make decisions about 200 milliseconds before conscious awareness occurs. What does this mean? It means that even at the very moment we think we're making decisions with free will, our unconscious has already prepared that decision. How ironic is that? We believe our choices are conscious and rational, but in reality, the deep shadow of the unconscious guides our actions. In one experiment, participants were shown 2 photographs and asked to choose the more attractive person. Interestingly, participants explained their choices rationally, but when researchers cleverly switched the photos, most participants didn't notice and still justified their choices. This is clear evidence of how much we delude ourselves about our judgments and decisions. Our unconscious sometimes leads our lives, yet often its existence goes undetected. Like a pilot hiding within us, the unconscious manages the underground storage of our desires, fears, and prejudices. This pilot speaks in a language we cannot understand and uses codes we cannot decipher. Chapter 2. The Art of Self-Deception. Humans possess an amazing ability. That is the ability to deceive themselves. In fact, we can be considered experts in this field. So in life, it's easier to fall into the comfortable lies of self-deception than to face the truth. Our brains filter reality through interesting mechanisms called cognitive distortions. These cognitive distortions are like colored glasses that prevent us from viewing the world objectively. For example, confirmation bias makes us selectively accept only information that reinforces what we already believe. Another example, the fundamental attribution error, leads us to place excessive emphasis on personal disposition rather than situational factors when judging others' behaviors. In a British study, college students were asked to evaluate their personality traits and were then presented with very ambiguous personality analysis results. Surprisingly, most students believed this general analysis accurately reflected their unique personality. This is what's known as the Barnum effect, showing our tendency to find special meaning even in ambiguous statements. And for this reason, many people find special meaning in the ambiguous words of fortune tellers or psychics. And when thinking about it cynically, self-deception might be one of humanity's finest survival strategies. After all, self-deception provides us comfort to endure difficult realities, but in exchange, we forfeit the possibility of true self-understanding. A philosopher once said, "Humans prefer to deny the laws of the universe rather than admit their own mistakes." We are too accustomed to blaming external factors for our failures or flaws. However, these defense mechanisms may protect self-esteem in the short term, but they hinder self-growth in the long run. Chapter 3. The Weight of Social Masks. Humans are social animals. We live performing numerous roles within various social contexts. At home, we act as parents or children. At work, as bosses or colleagues. And in society, as citizens. Within these various roles, we wear masks appropriate for each situation. Psychologist Carl Jung called this the persona. Persona is a word that refers to the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek theatre, symbolizing the external personality we display in social situations. The problem is that if we wear these masks too long and too often, we may forget the real self hidden behind the mask. Korean society especially bears the heavy weight of these social masks. The concept of chaemyeon, face, reputation, is a value deeply rooted in Korean culture, where people often prioritize behaviors that meet social expectations over their true feelings or thoughts. In this cultural context, self-understanding becomes an even more complex task. In a survey of adults, 70% of respondents answered, "I wear a mask in front of other people," according to research findings. More surprisingly, 30% of respondents answered, "Sometimes I'm confused about which is the real me." As such, we often suppress or distort our true selves to meet others' expectations and social norms. Over time, we become increasingly distant from our true feelings, desires, and values. As a result, we find it difficult to answer basic questions about who we are and what we want. Chapter 4. The Changing Self and the Illusion of Time. Another factor that complicates self-understanding is the impermanence of the self. We often think of ourselves as fixed, unchanging entities, but in reality, ourselves are constantly changing. As Heraclitus said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." Similarly, we can never exist as the same person twice. Our body cells continuously regenerate, our thoughts and emotions constantly flow, and our values and beliefs evolve over time. However, our brains strive to create a consistent self-narrative amidst these changes. We want to believe there is continuity between our past and present selves. This makes self-understanding even more complex. In an interesting psychology experiment, participants were asked to evaluate how different they were from their 10-year-ago selves. They were then asked to predict how different their 10-year future selves would be from their current selves. The results were surprising. Most participants perceived significant changes between past and present, but predicted relatively small changes between present and future. This is called the end of history illusion, showing our tendency to underestimate our capacity for change. From a cynical perspective, we have a narcissistic bias that makes us imagine we are already completed beings, as if evolution stopped after reaching us. But reality is not so generous. We continue to change, grow, and sometimes regress. Chapter 5. The Limitations of Language and the Trap of Consciousness. Another obstacle that makes self-understanding difficult is the limitation of language. Our inner experiences have complexity and subtlety that are difficult to fully capture in language. Wittgenstein said, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." If language, the tool we use to understand ourselves, is limited, then our self-understanding must also be limited. For example, Korean has a unique word expressing the emotion han. This is a complex mixture of deep sadness, anger, and resignation that is difficult to translate accurately into other languages. Similarly, many of our inner experiences include subtle emotions or states that are difficult to express in language. Moreover, since consciousness tends to operate through language, our conscious self-understanding is limited to experiences that language can capture. Experiences that cannot be expressed in words often remain outside our conscious awareness. This is why poets, musicians, and artists often strive to transcend the limitations of language. They use metaphors, rhythms, and images to express aspects of human experience that cannot be captured through direct explanation. Cynically speaking, our self-understanding is like attempting to play a complex symphony on a piano with one finger. The words and concepts we use to explain ourselves are too crude to capture the richness and complexity of our actual experiences. Chapter 6: The Absence of Death and the Pursuit of Meaning. Another obstacle to self-understanding is the difficulty we face in fully accepting our finitude. Philosopher Martin Heidegger defined humans as beings toward death. According to him, to truly understand ourselves, we must face our own death. However, in modern society, death is becoming increasingly abstracted. We die in hospitals and nursing homes, and death is separated from everyday life. This makes it difficult for us to truly understand and accept our finitude. In a famous experimental study, when participants were asked to think about their own death, their values and priorities changed significantly. This suggests that awareness of death plays an important role in self-understanding. Additionally, we have a strong desire to find meaning in life. As Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." However, with the secularization of modern society, many people have lost the clear meaning systems that previous generations held. In this situation, self-understanding goes beyond simply understanding one's psychological mechanisms to include deep questions about the meaning and purpose of life. This makes the task of self-understanding even more complex. From a cynical perspective, while we struggle to find meaning, the universe responds with complete silence to our questions. As Camus said, "We are strangers standing before an indifferent universe." Nevertheless, we continue to search for meaning and try to understand ourselves. Chapter 7: The Path to Self-Understanding. So far, we have examined various obstacles that make self-understanding difficult. However, this does not mean that self-understanding is impossible. Rather, by recognizing these obstacles, we can begin a journey toward deeper self-understanding. The path to self-understanding includes several key practices. First, cultivating the habit of self-observation. Meditation, journaling, and mindfulness practices can be powerful tools for raising awareness of our inner experiences. Various studies have shown that regular meditation improves self-awareness and emotional regulation abilities. Second, rewriting your own story. We are often trapped in the way we interpret our experiences. By reinterpreting our stories from various perspectives, we can gain a broader self-understanding. Approaches such as cognitive behavioral therapy systematically help this process of reinterpretation. Third, understanding yourself within various relationships. We discover and express different aspects of ourselves in relationships with others. By developing and maintaining meaningful relationships, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. Finally, it's important to view self-understanding as an ongoing process rather than a fixed goal. We are constantly changing, and therefore our self-understanding must also continue to evolve. There is no final answer to why humans find it difficult to understand themselves. However, even amidst these difficulties, the journey of self-understanding can be a rich and rewarding experience. Chapter 8: The Ultimate Dimension of Self-Understanding, Relational Identity. the deepest dimension of self-understanding leads beyond simply, what am I, to the question of, who am I, and to whom do I belong? This means that self-understanding extends beyond merely personal characteristics or psychological mechanisms into the realm of relational identity. Humans are essentially relational beings. We are formed within family, community, and broader social contexts. Therefore, true self-understanding must consider these relational contexts. Furthermore, many religious and spiritual traditions teach that human identity can ultimately be fully understood in relationship with the divine being. From this perspective, self-understanding becomes more than a psychological exploration. It becomes a spiritual journey. The Bible provides deep insights into this relational identity. Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female, he created them." This suggests that human identity can ultimately be understood in relationship with the Creator. Also, 1 John 4:8 says, "Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." This suggests that we can understand ourselves and the divine being more deeply in loving relationships. Psalm 139, 13-14 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well." This suggests that our existence was not created by chance, but with purpose. Finally, Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." This suggests that our identity is connected to the purpose of our lives, beyond mere self-awareness. These biblical teachings show that self-understanding is not simply identifying one's characteristics or abilities, but realizing to whom one belongs and for whom one was created. This relational identity provides us with deeper meaning and purpose. Conclusion: the journey of self-understanding. We have explored why it is difficult for humans to understand themselves, and how to overcome these difficulties and move toward deeper self-understanding. Various obstacles, such as the influence of the unconscious, cognitive distortions and self-defense, social identity and role confusion, the impermanence of the self, the limitations of language, and the difficulty of pursuing meaning complicate the path to self-understanding. However, despite these challenges, the journey of self-understanding is a valuable and rewarding pursuit. Self-observation, reinterpreting one's story, understanding oneself in relationships, and viewing self-understanding as an ongoing process help in this journey. Ultimately, the deepest self-understanding leads beyond "what am I" to the question of "who am I and to whom do I belong?" The Bible teaches that we were created in God's image and can discover our true identity in love and relationships. The recurring message throughout the Bible provides answers about who we are, what our value is, and what the purpose of our lives is. 1 Corinthians 13:12 says, "For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." This suggests that our self-understanding on earth is always imperfect, but ultimately we can reach complete understanding. The journey of self-understanding is not easy. It is a challenging process that must face the deep shadows of the unconscious, the traps of self-deception, the weight of social masks, and the limitations of language. But it is also a journey toward truth, freedom, and deep meaning. In the end, self-understanding is not just a matter of knowledge or insight, but a process of discovering oneself in love and truth. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." The answers to all questions of genuine self-understanding can be found in the Bible, because only the one who created us can provide the ultimate answers about who we are, why we are here, and where we are going. Thank you sincerely for exploring the complex journey of self-understanding with me through this audiobook today. I hope this content has been helpful in your journey of self-understanding. If you want more content like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you also set up notifications, you can be the first to receive news whenever new content is uploaded. I look forward to meeting you again in the next episode with deeper topics. Thank you.